Former President Rodolfo Landim opens up about the Libra issue and responds to his friend LEILA Pereira. We're also going to bring Bape's statement here about all these points, also involving refereeing. Bape talks about not wanting to use this pressure on refereeing as a crutch. Man, we're going to talk about all of this right now. And man, there are games happening. In fact, while we're releasing this video here, there's a Brazil match, a friendly going on. We're always bringing you the news here, even during Federación Internacional de Football Association dates. We don't have Flamengo for a while, but we're always here bringing everything to you. But look, so now we're going to move on to the news about Mengo. And yesterday, man, we had a very special visitor at Ninho do Urubu. Jose Boto even posted a photo. Alfredo did too. Look at that. With Aldair. Look, it's Aldair, man. Multiple international and world champion, former player, and Mengo idol made a special visit to the Ninho do Urubu training center. The legendary red-black defender was greeted by Portuguese directors Jose Boto and Alfredo Almeida, who seized the chance to capture the moment. He, Aldair, who was an idol in Europe, also played really well. So we really miss Aldair, man. Aldair played really well. He could have played longer at Flamengo, but he played really well. He was amazing. He was a beast. And look, I talked yesterday about Eric Pulgar's recovery, and I wanted to say that he showed up again yesterday along with most of the squad. He reported back on Thursday. Many players had 3 days off. Now the focus is on the Brasileirão game. Many ask, why 3 days off? The guys might go out at night, etc. My friends, Flamengo had been playing non-stop, but didn't have a midweek game this time due to the Federación Internacional de Football Association date. Other teams do. Fluminense played, Mirassol Palmeiras plays against Juventude, Flamengo doesn't. So the guys prefer to give these 3 days off. The guys are on break. They can go wherever they want. Do they have to be athletes? Yes. Do they need to avoid drinking and go to bed early? Yes. Now, right? News will always come, and I'll talk about it, especially since I spoke with a source connected to the board. But I'm going to say here, without sugarcoating it, what I think. But look, Eric Pulgar, it's worth mentioning here, is very important. That's right. He trained without any problems, both him and Saul. So Flamengo has Jorginho, Eric Pulgar, and Saul available. Will Felipe Luis use all three players together with Arrascaeta? Look, would you use this midfield because Eric Pulgar will be available against Botafogo? Would you put Jorginho, Pulgar, Jorginho, Saul, and Arrascaeta, and then there are only 2 spots left, right? You couldn't use both wingers up front. Then you would go with Samuel Lino or Gonzalo Plata or Luis Araujo and Pedro. Or you would play with 2 wingers without a fixed striker. It would be Samuel Lino, Plata, or Luis Araujo, right? Or you play leaning more to one side. For example, with Luis Araujo and Pedro with the full back also acting as a wing back with Ayrton Lucas or Vinha or Alexandro dropping further left, okay? There are many possibilities. I would play with this midfield. If you have Pulgar, Jorginho, and Saul available, I would play with the midfield like this. Pulgar, Jorginho, Saul, Arrascaeta. I wanted your thoughts. For me, that's the ideal midfield because you have Pulgar, who can also start the play and makes interesting passes. Jorginho, who plays really well. Saul, who is also offensive. He's very good defensively, but he's also offensive. Arrascaeta, who is a genius, right? And you use a fullback to push up a bit more, and man, you end up with an incredible midfield, right? I wanted your opinion about that. Now I'm going to talk about the issue about Samuel Lino, because, you know, in the middle of this Federación Internacional de Football Association break and the players' time off, we had a lot of news coming out regarding Flamengo players going out at night. Then they talked about Samuel Lino. They talked about Carrascal. They mentioned someone else too. The thing I'm going to talk to you about, look, without sugarcoating it, for me, a soccer player who's out partying until 5 or 6 in the morning, he's not an athlete. He's not an athlete. If that's happening, it's up to Flamengo to solve this situation, and it's up to the player himself to see the mess he's making, okay? Now, without evidence, without footage, the guys could also be throwing a party at their own house. How is Flamengo going to control that? Their condo? How is Flamengo supposed to control this situation? There's no way to control it. Now, do we have proof? Do we have footage? It's complicated. It was their day off, right? Flamengo gave them 3 days leave. Flamengo faced a tough schedule for a long time, including the Club World Cup. Yes, there were some days off, but Flamengo granted them during the Federación Internacional de Football Association international break. And a lot of stories come up. Now, Jorge Nicola is saying that Samuel Lino has been seen out at night many times. And then the fans out at night, and then the fans say that's why he's not playing. He arrived, he was doing well and all, and he's already out partying at night. Don't do it, man. Don't form opinions based on these things, guys. Please don't encourage this crisis. The message I have for you is this: don't believe just any information. Okay? Don't make accusations for no reason. Let's wait. Let's see what's happening. I spoke with a source connected to the board. In a tone of even demanding, are you going to let this happen? Is this really happening? And what they told us is that this is a huge lie. A source from inside Flamengo said it's not true, that there's nothing to this story about Samuel Lino being out partying all the time. So be very careful when you criticize as well, if you lack confirmation and aren't sure it's true, okay? So it's very important for you to be careful, you who are following along and everything. Obviously, you know that when there's something to criticize, when something needs to be called out, I'm the first one to do it. You've already seen me here angry, foaming at the mouth, outraged. But when something needs to be called out, I'm the first one to do it. I've already criticized everyone. I criticize everyone we need to criticize. Look, the guys here, Luan Fla, posted a picture of the referees, right? He wrote, the CBF always assigns the same 4 referees for Flamengo and Palmeiras. So who do you think is the least bad to referee this game? He's referring to Abate Abel, Rafael Klaus, Daronco, and Wilton Pereira Sampaio. It's always these 4. People think it will be one of the 4, right? They won't pick Abate, but one of the other 3, Wilton, Klaus, or Daronco. I'm betting on Klaus, okay? I'm almost sure they'll pick Klaus. But Eric Faria and some other journalists and fans raised a very interesting point. They gave a hint. Eric Faria suggested bringing in international referees. No connection at all with Flamengo, with Palmeiras, or with Brazilian soccer. A European foreign renowned referee is being brought in to officiate the Flamengo versus Palmeiras match. What do you think about this? I think it's spectacular. For me, Eric Faria is absolutely right. Everyone who is suggesting this idea of bringing in an international referee, a referee who has no connection whatsoever with Brazilian soccer, to officiate this match between Flamengo and Palmeiras, the match that, whether you like it or not, is an early final. Flamengo still relies on Palmeiras slipping up so they can't win the Brazilian championship on their own. Okay, but there are still many rounds left. So this match is an early final. I would definitely bring in a referee from outside to officiate this match. Flamengo and Palmeiras, by the way, racing Flamengo's Libertadores semi-final opponent. Sharing this update about racing, they lost a starting defender and have a key absence for the semi-final against Flamengo. Defender Franco Pardo, a key starter for Racing, suffered a serious muscle injury and is out of the Libertadores semi-final against Flamengo. Besides him, Elias Torres, who tore his knee's cruciate ligament, is also out of the team, okay? Both were injured in the match against Independiente Rivadavia in the Argentine Championship. So that's information from Globo Esporte. Racing has two major absences to face Flamengo. Does that mean anything? No. Flamengo often struggles more against reserve teams or those with absences as those players show extra determination. You have to stay alert. You have to stay alert because there was a report over in Argentina. There was no anti-doping test in the Estudiantes match, yet a collective doping report followed. No one mentions that now. Is anyone from Flamengo paying attention? Are they going to take all possible measures to prevent this from happening again? Imagine Flamengo. How can we be sure those players weren't doped when playing Flamengo? There was no anti-doping. Everything was wrong, which is why people discussed collective doping. So, guys, honestly, we need to be really careful. Flamengo has to keep their eyes open, okay? I'm bringing here this important information regarding President Rodolfo Landim and also one of his main allies, both of whom have spoken out about the Libra issue. Landim spoke to the newspaper O Globo with Diogo Dantas. Here's the thing. When the statute was signed, there were no negotiations for rights underway, and there was still hope that the group would eventually become a real league with all the other clubs joining in. But it's not a statute where it was expected that all the details of future contracts would be discussed. What mattered there was to include basic principles. He's saying that he signed based on basic principles and that a lot would be discussed later and unanimity would be required. He made it clear that what he did was sign a document with basic principles. Notice how important this is for those who criticize Flamengo's signing. So he brings it here. Look, like, for example, the right to veto future decisions that Flamengo obtained. The rest would come later. First of all, Diogo Lemos, who also spoke out, was the vice president of the cabinet in Landim's administration. He says, first, it's important to separate very different situations. When I speak out as a fan and advisor about administrative or sporting mistakes that directly impact Flamengo, I don't hesitate to criticize the president or any director. That's part of transparency and the natural accountability of someone who loves the club. Another thing is issues that involve institutional and legal disputes against other clubs or entities, like in the case of Libra. Any public criticism that weakens Flamengo's position would be acting against the club itself. It would be giving weapons to our opponents. And that's something I would never do. Diogo Lemos, former vice president of Landim's cabinet, made it clear that he wouldn't give weapons to the opponents. But both Landim and he made it clear that it's not exactly as LEILA Pereira and Landim say. Making it clear that what he signed was related to basic principle situations, okay? It was the beginning of a relationship in Libra, and then it would be discussed later. And we know that unanimity was required. And Landim talks about the importance of having left everything tied up with Flamengo's veto power. Notice how important this is. He ensured the veto was secured, right? Before we start criticizing and saying things like, he did this, he did that, Flamengo is crucial. Bape is managing to turn things around with this attitude. A lot of people are saying, oh, but Landim wanted to turn Flamengo into a Sociedade Anônima do Futebol. Oh, but this and that. Let's not assume. Let's not go with suppositions. Let's go with what we have in hand. The contract, it wasn't valid for this new deliberation. Flamengo had veto power and Bape is vetoing. Okay? Very well, by the way. And we also have Bape speaking to Globo Esporte about the refereeing issue. Look, I'll just pass it on to you. The biggest challenge we have today in terms of refereeing is the criteria part. The referee has 3 or 4 versions of himself. Depending on the match, sometimes even during the match, he uses different criteria in the same game. Guys, that's a reality. It's never just one factor. There are several factors, right? And he says that some of them are our responsibility and some have to do with the unpredictable nature of soccer. Bape talking about this moment for Flamengo and also about refereeing, which makes us have this passion. And part of it has to do with the first part regarding eventually referee mistakes, right? He now says another factor is the following. It's that the athletes, and this goes for all referees, because the refereeing committee says now referees are human beings. They are. Athletes are impacted by the heat of the game. So, by the way, the players, they treat them. In this case, it's all true. I'll tell you guys a secret. Players are human too. Bape is warning there. They're also affected by the referee's actions, right? And that's right. And they also have the right to think that in similar situations, he's supposedly treating equals in a different way. That creates a challenge. Bape is doing well in his speech. How do you solve that? Bape says with monitoring, with criteria, with training. This is a process that takes time, right? He's warning. And all of us, when we're harmed, we think the result has to be solved instantly. But what does that take? Time. So dedication, work, effort. This isn't done overnight. Now, Bape also said that Flamengo doesn't have to hold on to the issue of refereeing as if it were a crutch for bad results. That it's really not because of refereeing mistakes that Flamengo lost the amount of points they've lost recently. Flamengo lost 6 points with 3 draws at Maracanã and 3 points at Fonte Nova against Bahia. That's 9 points over 4 games. During that period, they won a game against Corinthians away from home. So in 5 games, Flamengo won 1, drew 3, and lost 1. They dropped 9 points in 5 matches, and there's no excuse for that. Bape was right. You can't use refereeing mistakes as an excuse. We had Mundo GV. I invite you to go to Mundo GV and watch the full interview with Jose Luis Runco. He interviewed Runco, former Flamengo doctor, who talked about Nicolas de la Cruz's situation. Let's follow along here. Take a look.
About De La Cruz, I'd like you to talk to us. Haven't you spoken about this yet?
Actually, I think that once again, they used something I said that was meant for a medical professional. Unfortunately, I sent it to a group instead of privately, and someone
He couldn't do that.
Made a huge fuss.
Not even in private. A doctor can't do it.
Professionals, only among the players, a sense of coverage. If the comment I made was a comment I didn't make publicly, it will go by. If the athlete takes care of himself and seeks treatment, he's an excellent kid. He has his problems, but that's not relevant here. If I was unfortunate in my comments, time will tell me. And if in that comment I made to a doctor I had a point of view with reasonable considerations, time will tell.
Man, look, either way, you keep saying it, you keep exposing the player. I invite you to watch the full interview over at Mundo GV. It's a really good interview. Now, you're exposing the player again. You just exposed the player again. Oh, I said it last year, but you didn't say last year, since you knew your statement was widely publicized. And you're insisting, saying, oh, let's see in the future if what I said was true or not. For God's sake, as a doctor, you can't expose your patient. You can't. He was an asset to your club. You should have stayed quiet, Runco. Throwing more crap into the fan was the worst choice. That's it. I invite you to follow, like, and share on all platforms. If you're on YouTube, I invite you to subscribe down below and turn on notifications by clicking the bell. Leave that awesome like on the video. Thank you so much for your company. Red and black greetings. This is Flamengo. Thanks.